boy Luke here for our core picks at the Waste Management Open. We've got ourselves one of the best weeks in the entire golf schedule. A golf course that's truly one of the most entertaining, a wild last three stretch through 16 through 18, and of course, one of the most star-studded fields, especially so this time around where we have the strongest field in tournament history. We have 3 of the top 5 in the world, 18 of the top 30 in the world golf rankings, and overall, whether in the 10K, 9, or even 8K range, guys that can really go home and bring this tournament. I mean, just ball strikers paradise here at TPC Scottsdale. And anytime we have the best fields in golf, we're always going to see that cream rise to the top. So I'm really excited for it. Of course, ends on Sunday before the Super Bowl. They usually try and get the tee times out really early too, even though it is out in Arizona, to make sure it's finished before the afternoon. So overall, just a great weekend of golf to come ahead. And here in this video, of course, we're going to cover my top 6 picks for DFS contests this weekend. These 6 picks are going to be people that I'm building a majority of my lineups around. They bring both safety and upside to the table. Of course, my player pool is going to be 40 or 50 golfers by the end of the week, but these players I'm looking at having 15, 20, maybe even 30% ownership in my pool of 150 lineups. With that being said, before we hop into it, let's go ahead and hop into a review of last week, where our picks, I'd say, were slightly above average. In terms of a 6 of 6 percentage, we had 4 of our 6 picks get through the cut. Of my 150 lineups, we had 13 6 of 6s, which was well above the field. The unfortunate part, we didn't have Hoagie as a main part of our lineups. He was somebody who I excluded from my player pool. Didn't think the price was really worth it. I certainly didn't see him going out there and winning, and anytime you don't have the winner in your player pool, going to be hard to really capture that top end upside. So we ended up making about 10% more than our entry fees last week, which we can live with, right? We live to fight another day, but hopefully this time around we can capture that winner and take home some of these large field tournaments. In terms of our value picks, we had plenty of hits there. Our fades and sleepers ended up being pretty decent as well. Didn't end up having any of our sleepers come through in the top 10. Jordan Spieth was a sleeper pick, but he ended up being one of our core picks after Berger withdrew from the field. So we had 50% Jordan Spieth that ended up working out. In terms of value picks, Beau Hossler was somebody we had plenty of exposure to. Joel Damon, one of our main value picks as well. And all of our values made it through the cut, which is something that doesn't happen all too often. Troy Merritt also ended up finishing in the top 5. So from the value perspective, we really had this thing hammered down. Unfortunately, of course, the missing piece was Tom Hoagie. And we're going to move on to this week and hopefully have all of those figured out. With that being said, though, moving on to this week, I love this tournament because it's so predictable. We've been here since 1987, have plenty of shots gained metrics to go off of, plenty of recent form course history to take a look at here as well. So I am expecting a really big week. With that being said, let's go ahead and hop right on into it. All right, guys, on the screen, you can see our projections for this week. I'll remind you, if you're looking for direct access to these, of course, as they change throughout the week, ownership, player pools get updated. Make sure to go ahead and check out the link in the description. It is $1 per month for my Patreon projections. By far the best deal across the entire industry. So make sure you go ahead and sign up to get access. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the key stats for this week. If you guys haven't already seen the course breakdown video, first off, highly recommend you check that out. A link will be in the description to that. But the most important stat here by far is shots gained approach. This is a highly strategic golf course. There are a lot of risk reward type holes where you really have to take on the flagstick to have any chance of making a good score. You can play the conservative approach, but to win at 15 to 19 under par, which is what we typically see for a winner here, you have to have that aggression. So shots gained approach is extremely important, particularly from the 150 to 175 range, where we have over half the approach shots coming from. So you can see that there's a little bit more emphasis on that range than the other categories. Also quite a bit of emphasis on this wedge range from 125 to 150. That's because we do have our share of holes under 420 yards, which means that most of these players that are getting it out there 300 to 310 yards, particularly with the elevation in play this week, they will be playing at about 1,000 feet of elevation. We'll have plenty of scoring wedges in hand. Next up, we have shots gained off the tee, which isn't nearly as important as shots gained approach, but for the guys that finish in the top 5 and ultimately end up winning in this golf tournament, they end up being great off the tee players. They're guys that are not only long off the tee, but tend to also be accurate. Again, with the risk reward aspect to this golf course, putting yourself in position to attack pins is just as vital as actually attacking them yourself. So that is something that we've seen over the years. In the course breakdown, I go hole by hole, showing what you can do by being aggressive at TPC Scottsdale. So it's not a surprise to see that weighted at 22%. We also have shots gained around the green. This is a tricky golf course, as all the TPC network is. Getting up and down is especially difficult. And even though we have some of the largest greens on tour here, right around 7,000 square foot on average, you still have to be able to get up and down because you're not going to be perfect. Next up, we have shots gained putting, which is, you can see no surface type here. The greens are a mix of Bermuda, POA, and bent grass. You only see it at about 4 or 5 different golf courses around the tour. And while we could try to hunker down on those 4 golf courses and make a shots gained hybrid surface or whatnot, it's not a big sample size. We only have 2 to 3 rounds for most of the golfers in the field, and most of them have 0 rounds in the database, particularly the guys in that value range. And if any of the guys have any type of real sample size, it's usually from 5 to 6 years ago. So as a result, I'm just taking a look at normal shots gained putting. Like we said before, guys like Stanley, Hideki Matsuyama have done extremely well at this golf course in the past, so it's weighted a lot less than usual. Next up, we have birdie or better percentage, which makes a lot of sense. It goes along with the whole aggression mindset, taking aim at pins, being aggressive, going out there and trying to score. That's how we're encapsulating that. 3-putt avoidance is important with these large greens. There's an extra par 4 in play, it being a par 71, so we're looking at that. Eagle rate, there's a lot more eagles at the Waste Management Open, whether it's holdouts or, of course, eagles on the par 5s. There's also a drivable par 4. That comes into play. And the last one was shots gained putting on bent, POA, bent. I did put a slight influence on those 4 or 5 golf courses on tour that we know have similar surfaces, but only for the players that actually have a sample size, and it's a minimal impact, if at all. They're at 1.5 units. Let's next go over to the projections now and go through our core plays. With that in mind, the type of players that we're looking for, of course, ball strikers, but ball strikers with a complete game that can get up and down. If they're a good putter, that's a little bit of a bonus. And Viktor Hovland checks all of those boxes. Maybe except the around the green play. He's not typically the best player at getting up and down, but we have seen a much better player of late in that category. If we take a look at the Scottsdale fit, he's number 9 in the field, which is respectable for some of these guys in the 10K range. But this isn't really encapsulated with the recent form, right? He has 3 wins over his last 4 starts. And the thing is, all of them don't have shots gained categories. 2 of them were European Tour wins. One of them was that Hero World Challenge down in the Bahamas. So overall, his recent form rank here should be number 1 in the world. He's won 3 of his last 4 times out, and those were no jokes of field. In fact, all of them were stronger than Pebble Beach's field. So at $10,200, you could argue that he's extremely underpriced. If we take a look at some of the shots gained metrics, the ball striking has been unbelievable, gaining nearly half a stroke per round on approach, over a third of a stroke per round off the tee. And if there's one thing that Viktor Hovland can do off the tee, it's be long and accurate. The guy hits absolute missiles, much like a Sanjay M, who we would have been all over here in this field. Unfortunately, is not teeing it up this week. So Viktor Hovland at $10,200, maybe the more expensive, better version of Sanjay. The reason why I say better version is that the guy can get hot with the putter. You can see over his quote-unquote last 24 measured rounds, he's losing to the field. But in reality, with those 3 shots gained wins that aren't on the record, he's gaining drastically with the putter. We saw him on the European Tour, absolutely lighting it up, winning by multiple strokes in each event. The around the green play also looked a lot better. He was getting up and down more than the field was. So during those events, you could argue that he would have probably been gaining strokes to the field with his around the green play. And that's really vaulted him to this next level. He's a complete player. We know that he can get hot with the putter. He's one of the best ball strikers in the world. Literally every single week. We haven't seen him have an off week at the ball striking in over a year and a half at this point, which gives him a ton of upside and also a ton of safety for these Draftkings contest. And that's really the key here. This is somebody who hasn't missed a cut in an extremely long time. And even though he doesn't have a lot of course history here, in fact, his only start here, he did miss the cut. I'm willing to give him a pass. That's the reason why he's priced down here at $10,200. He could have very well been the 3rd highest priced player in this field, and I would have still considered playing him. In fact, he still would have been in my player pool. So I like the value that we're getting. Again, 3 wins out of your last 4 performances. It's really hard to top that. And at his price tag, projected cut rate there of right around 67%. Really do like him in this tournament. Next up, we're going to go on to Scottie Scheffler at $9,100. You'll see him right here. He comes in decent course rank across the field, whether it's 28 with recent form, 22 at Scottsdale. What's really to like here is, first off, the price tag. He could easily have been $9,600, $9,700 up here, swapped with somebody like a Brooks Koepka, because the recent form has been a lot better than his counterparts. Daniel Berger dealing with an injury, Sam Burns off of a missed cut, Brooks Koepka has looked dreadful of late, and even Xander Schauffele didn't look all that good at the Farmers. So Scottie Scheffler, somebody who's been making a ton of cuts of late at this golf tournament itself, has made cuts in the past. And even though he doesn't have that tour win yet, this is exactly the type of venue that he could take it home at, because Scottie Scheffler is extremely aggressive. Not only is he always pulling driver off the tee, always looking to push the ball as far as he possibly can down the fairway. That's extremely evident with his swing. If you guys have seen him, he literally swings out of his shoes. He's also an extremely aggressive iron player. He's somebody who's not shy at all to go take a course to 7 or 8 under par. And to win this golf tournament, you're going to have at least 2 ceiling rounds. We've seen that in years past. Jordan Spieth had 2 ceiling rounds last year and still couldn't take it home. Brooks Koepka ended up only having 1 ceiling day, but the other 3 days was very respectable, shooting 4 or 5 under par. So that would be the other way to do so. But most of the winners here over the years have had 2 of those ceiling rounds. If we go ahead and take a look at Scottie Scheffler's game, the approach play has been great, gaining nearly a third of his stroke per round. The off the tee play, not nearly as stout as what we've seen in the past, but I expect him to get back to that elite off the tee level, where he was a top 5 player on tour for the early part of 2021. Bombing it both with accuracy and, of course, with the distance that he's known for. The one issue with Scottie Scheffler, you could argue, would be the putter. He's inconsistent. Much like a Viktor Hovland, he can get extremely hot with the putter. But one thing about Scottie Scheffler is he gets colder a lot quicker and a lot more often. One thing we've noticed about TPC Scottsdale, and I said it before when we talked about the Brooks wins and, of course, the Hideki back-to-back wins, is bad putters tend to excel here. And that's why I really think this is such a good course fit. If there's that one thing that holds him back, like we said, it's that putter. And if he's going to come through and break through for his first win, there is no better place. He's got the aggression. He's got that mindset you need to take apart this golf course. And he's certainly got the stones to take aim at some of these compromising pins. I mean, number 15 is just absolute fear material for your average amateur. It's that par 5 with the island green. None of us would be going for that green, but I guarantee you Scottie Scheffler, even if he's in the rough or a fairy bunker, goes for it pretty much every single time. So I like him this week. I'm going to be betting him outright to win his first ever golf tournament as well. Given the field strength, you're also going to be getting a really solid number on that. That's also why he's only $9,100, and it's where we're looking to cash in on perhaps that first ever win. Next up, let's go to Louis Oosthuizen here at $8,800. He's somebody who, across the board, is a perfect course fit. He's great recent form. And the course history here, he has a 3rd place finish and an 11th place finish. So you really can't find any fault in this game other than the ownership. I mean, he's going to be one of the most chalky plays by far this week. It's a little bit early to tell what that exact number is going to be, but I would imagine he's nearing the 30% mark. If we take a look at his recent form, you can see Louis has been his usual self, by far one of the best approach players in the world, gaining over half a stroke per round. Off the tee, he's gaining, mostly due to his accuracy. He's one of the more accurate drivers in the world. He's not really getting it out there in terms of his distance, but we have seen over the years at the Waste Management Open, guys that finish in the top 10, top 15, even have won this golf tournament before, aren't bombers, right? Like a Webb Simpson. We have guys like a Snedeker win this golf tournament. Even Cal Stanley won back in the days, not really a bomber, more accurate off the tee. So I'm not going to completely exclude him for that reason. In terms of the getting up and down around the green, he's one of the better players in the world. The putting also in 2021, he was the best putter in the world. And while over his last 24 measure rounds or last 50 measure rounds, hasn't nearly been as good as what we saw to begin the year, still well above average. So Louis Oosthuizen, he's an aggressive iron player. He's got that accuracy off the tee we're looking for. And as long as he can give himself enough eagle looks this week to perhaps capture one of those 7 to 8 under rounds, I really like his chances not only to be a great DFS play, where I think he's one of the safest plays on the board. I mean, his price tag is just excellent there at $8,800. In terms of the outright market, also has got some sneaky upside to win this thing. So I like him here in both markets, especially here in DFS where he's only $8,800, and somebody who has elite course history, elite course fit, and of course, elite recent form. Let's go down to some of more of our value picks at this point. First off, it's going to be Keith Mitchell at $7,500. He's somebody who the recent form looks good because he's number 18 in the field. But if you take a look at the last two events specifically, over there at Waialae, where he ended up playing extremely well, actually last three events even. Over at Waialae, he ended up making the cut, finishing in the top 15, and that was a course that didn't fit his game at all. At the Amex, made the cut, also posted another top 15. A course that fit his game a lot better, so I wish he actually ended up finishing in the top 5. It's still great to see. And then last week, ended up at Pebble Beach, another golf course that's more made for some of those shorter hitters, doesn't really fit his game, went out there and finished in the top 10. So Keith Mitchell, he's on a very sneaky run of form here. Not a lot of people are talking about it. In terms of his course fit here, it's immaculate. He's one of the longer players on tour, very good off the tee. Let's take a look at some of these shots gained metrics just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. You can see off the tee gaining 0.6 shots gained per round. That's elite. That might be the best number in this field. The approach play hasn't really been there. The last 3 golf tournaments, though, where he's gone on this stretch of golf, the approach play has been well above that. He's gaining nearly a third of a stroke per round over his last 3 events. And you can see the putting, it's been decent. He's typically not a very good putter, and that's really why I like him here at this golf course. Keith Mitchell, historically, one of the worst putters on the PGA Tour. He's somebody who misses those 3 to 5 footers from time to time, but he's got that Hideki trait, that Brooks Koepka trait, where here at Scottsdale, that tends to be a little bit forgiven. So even though he doesn't have a ton of course history here, I believe he's got a couple made cuts, a couple missed cuts in the fold as well. The recent form has been the best that we've seen for quite some time. I would imagine in the middle of 2021, when he was at the Wells Fargo, Valspar, that time of year, he went out there and had a pretty good recent form stretch there as well. But ever since that, this is by far his best stretch. So I'm going to be jumping in on this at a great course fit for him and when he's on this recent stretch of form. Let's go ahead and move on to our diamond in the rough. It's going to be Aaron Wise. We're going back to him after that missed cut. He was chalk, ended up missing the cut at the Farmers, which was a huge surprise, right? That was also a course that really fit his game. But if we liked him at the Farmers, we're going to have to like him here at, of course, Scottsdale, because off the tee plays really well here. Of course, that's what we are looking at the Farmers. But even more importantly, we're looking for approach play. And over his last 50 rounds, much like a Keith Mitchell, or even more so than a Keith Mitchell, Aaron Wise has been an unbelievable ball striker, gaining over a third of a stroke per round on approach, gaining nearly 0.2 of a stroke per round off the tee. He's long off the tee, he's accurate, and the putter's really what's unlocked his success. Much like a Viktor Hovland needed to figure it out around the green to be a solid PGA Tour player, it was the putting for Aaron Wise. And ever since he went to the broomstick method, that long arm lock type of putter, but he doesn't use it in an arm lock fashion, he's been unbelievable. He's always been a solid ball striker, even very solid around the green as well. His tee to green numbers have always been top 50 on the PGA Tour. If he can continue this run with the putter, which did escape him at the Farmers Insurance Open, I expect him to have a massive 2022 season. So I'm going to be buying back in on him. Same exact thing as with Keith Mitchell, of course, with Viktor Hovland, some of these other ball strikers we're targeting. This is the golf course where all of that is forgiven. It's by far the least correlated stat. This is the golf course where you can almost ignore putting altogether. So I really do like Aaron Wise there a whole lot at $7,100, especially buying back in on him at this price tag and what is likely to be lower ownership, right? He was absolute chalk last time out. Anytime one of these guys goes out and misses a cut, nobody wants to play him the next time out. So we'll have to keep an eye on this come Wednesday, but somebody who, as of right now, I really like. And now finally, our last play of this week, Mr. No Putt himself, the captain of it. Luke List is the captain now that he brought home a win. But Kyle Stanley's first ever tour win was here. That's right, back in 2014, a long time ago. You can see his Scottsdale fit number 13 in the field. So in terms of the shots gained metrics, it makes a ton of sense that this is where he was able to do so. But of course, it's the off the tee play, it's the approach play with a Stanley that really makes him stick out. And over his last 50 measured rounds, he's been unbelievable, gaining over 0.7 of a stroke per round in that category, actually over 0.75 of a stroke per round with his ball striking. The around the green has never been special, But if his ball striking is there, he's not going to need to worry about the around the green all that often. But it's really the putter that's the bugaboo, right? He's losing nearly a stroke per round. And this is a massive sample size, guys, 50 rounds. He is a complete dog shit putter. We know that about Kyle Stanley. But if Hideki can win here, if Brooks can win here multiple times in the last 5 years, why not Kyle Stanley? This is the exact type of golf course where this type of guy is going to win. In terms of the recent form, he's looked pretty decent of late. This guy makes a ton of cuts. The issue is he doesn't finish in the top 25 all that often. For him to go ahead and do so, he is going to have to at least be a neutral putter, if not gain 1 or 2 strokes on the field. If he goes out and does that, much like a Luke List over there at the Farmers Insurance Open, could literally go out and win this thing. And I know I said the same exact thing about Luke List. He went out and won that thing. He was in a little bit of a better situation than Kyle Stanley, was in a much better stretch of form, had at least gained strokes at the Farmers in the past. Kyle Stanley, when he won this 12th tournament, obviously gained strokes on the greens, but outside of that, he hasn't. He's made a bunch of cuts here. He's missed a few cuts over the years here as well. But he's $6,400, a pure flyer play. And again, he's been doing a really good job of late of at least making cuts. So I like his safety here. But of course, anytime we have a past winner at this event that's still been striking the ball beautifully. I mean, again, over 7/10 of a stroke gain per round with the ball striking. I'm going to be somebody that I'm investing in. So he's the flyer play that I'm really looking at down low. Is going to give you a ton of salary flexibility towards the top of the leaderboard. That's all I've got for this week's core picks. Before you go on and get out of here, go ahead and let me know down in the comments who you guys think ends up winning this week. For me, it's going to be Scottie Scheffler. The obvious choice would be Viktor Hovland. 4 of his last 5, that kind of thing. But I think Scottie ends up getting it done. He's somebody I've already placed an outright bet on. His numbers this week, given the field strength, are excellent, especially in the DFS market as well at his price tag. But go ahead and let me know who you guys got down in the comments. And as always, I appreciate all of your support here. You guys coming by and enjoying the content. If you guys haven't already liked the video, make sure to go ahead and do so. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel here, I highly recommend you guys go ahead and do that as well. If you enjoyed this type of content, we're going to have even more DFS content dropping throughout the week. Our value plays later on tonight, our fades and sleepers, our weekly DFS live stream every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, or of course our showdown content or prize picks content throughout the weekend. We've got tons of fantasy golf content coming out on here, this channel, and if you don't want to miss any of it going into the future, subscribing is exactly how you will do so. In terms of that, that's all we've got for this week, guys. I appreciate you stopping by again. Good luck with all of your lineups for this week, and I'll see you guys next time.